After my last video on outdated Star Citizen ships that need a rework, looking at the comments section, it became clear that I missed quite a few big ones in dire need of updating. So here are 10 more outdated ships in Star Citizen that require reworking according to you, its loyal fans. Starting with the #1 community request, the Anvil Carrack. Arguably what used to be one of the most awesome ships in Star Citizen years ago has become the subject of much criticism since its release. Now, I'm well aware that there have been some updates to the Carrack, giving it much needed pilot controlled weapons and finally that blast shield that we were promised years ago. But there's much more work to be done. You see, apart from long-standing issues with its elevators and being flung into space during quantum travel, there are also those cargo ramps on the sides that simply don't touch ground, making it extremely frustrating to use. Many haulers and traders opting for other, more practical options. It's an exploration vehicle, I get that, but taking an hour loading vehicles or cargo only to be ejected into the void during jumps is frustration on a whole other level. #2, the Drake Caterpillar. One of the favorite classic cargo haulers in the verse, the Caterpillar, despite recently getting the command module when the Ironclad released, still suffer from the same issues that plagued its loyal fans for years. For such a big ship, many users feel that the interior feels rather tight and limited, especially when compared to the newer, more expensive options. Some suggest moving the catwalk to the exterior in order to free up some much needed space on the inside. But the most requested feature to add is the modularity of the ship, which was promised many moons ago but has still not been delivered. Personally, I'd also like them to have a second look at those side doors, as I find the Cat such a pain in the ass to load and unload. It's just ridiculous compared to how smooth and easy it is to do with the majority of its competitors. #3, the Anvil Gladiator. One of the top 4 best in show ship winners last year, the Gladiator has always flown well below the radar for most players until then. But now it's finally getting the attention it deserves, being one of the best looking ships in the entire game in my opinion. Despite being a fan favorite in that same BIS tournament, many feel that CIG has simply forgotten that the ship exists, not seeing any notable updates in over 11 years of being in existence. Apart from a much requested Gold Pass update, it's still riddled with bugs that's been plaguing it for years. Some fans, myself included, would like to see its turrets slave to the pilot for players who prefer to fly solo, because once you run out of missiles, it's nothing more than a sexy hull that can't seem to harm anything bigger than these small, weak ships. #4, the Aegis Retaliator. Yes, we finally have the option to either run the Tully as a top boat, trader, or mix of both, thanks to its modularity. But the general consensus is that the interior is in dire need of a gold standard rework in order to bring it up to scratch compared to the newest ships in the verse. I for one am quite a big fan of its interior, but it definitely feels like it's falling behind in terms of living space and practicality the more shiny new toys get released. Apart from that, there are also long-standing issues with these modules where they're sometimes simply not loading, torps going missing, or simply can't be swapped out with anything that's not stock. It's getting better, but it's still there for some. Of course, there are workarounds like self-destructing and claiming the ship, but needless to say, that shouldn't be needed or be seen as an excuse to delay fixing these annoying issues. #5, the Drake Cutlass Black. Right off the bat, I'd say that the entire Cutlass line of ships need a rework, as they're all currently lacking physicalized components, meaning that engineering on these ships is non-existent, let alone trying to loot one for ship upgrades. But the most requested variant users feel should be prioritized is the Cutty Black, which seems to have gathered a cult-like following over the years. With the release of Grey's Shiv Heavy Fighter, apart from the missing components and a loo, many feel that the Cutlass Black's top turret should also be slaved to the pilot. Even though that would be really nice for a solo player like me, I'm not sure I entirely agree with that suggestion. A toilet, on the other hand, I mean, those side doors just don't cut it during the cold winter times, if you know what I mean. Number 6. The MISC Prospector. One of the most loved industrial ships in the game, thanks to its small size and earning potential, the MISC Prospector needs a gold standard pass quite desperately according to many. So what is the Prospector missing that other newer industrial ships have? The most notable and absolutely crucial one for mining gameplay in Star Citizen is the lack of internal storage. That's right. Want to take an extended mining trip with tons of gadgets, modules, food and drink? Well, better grab that large backpack or SCU crate, because there's currently no magic onboard storage to place your important items. Sure, internal storage doesn't sound like much, but with mining especially, it will make a massive difference for its users. Number 7. The Anvil Hornet MK I. Yes, we have the Mark IIs and they're awesome, but since they were released, it seems like CRG just completely forgot about the old guard, the original badass line of medium fighter ships when Star Citizen was first announced. The original Ghost was my first dream ship, later also falling in love with the Super Hornet and Wildfire Mark I, but each year they seem to fall further behind in the pecking order. I'm not suggesting they'd be just as good as the Mark IIs, but they do need a gold standard pass, giving us a weapon rack under the nose as well as bringing back the internal storage they removed not too long ago. Many other new fighters that are even cheaper have those features, making the Mark Is easy to overlook as you go straight for the newer Mark IIs. Number 8. Consolidated Outland's Mustang. I've always been a massive fan of the Mustang line of ships and love them all, but together with many smaller craft like the Reliance series, they simply feel left out and forgotten about. Apart from the internal storage that can be finicky at times, forcing you to open the cockpit first before being able to access it on rare occasions, it could also do with some weapon racks and newer utility gameplay features. Especially the beta, which has an interior to walk around in. Components aren't accessible, and the lack of firepower makes almost any other starter ship on the roster a better option as opposed to grabbing a Mustang, which is a shame. Number 9. The Anvil Hawk. One of the most awesome ships in terms of design for me. The Hawk has so much going for it, it's ridiculous. It's tough, has decent firepower, a prisoner pod at the back to ferry stranded citizens around, and even a Tromag EMP burst generator to shut down enemy ships mid-flight. Well, apart from all the fancy new utilities, there's also no component access, and the EMPs in general could use some love, because whereas they used to be great, they've just not been as effective since master modes were introduced a few years ago. Number 10. The Origin 400i. This is the one ship I've purchased, melted, repurchased and melted again on repeat over the years. I love it, but it always just feels like it's lacking in almost every department despite looking like it has it all. From the cargo bay that sits too low, to those cooling chambers having no use and taking up so much interior space, it's just not up to scratch. Other things that come to mind are the front X1 hanger that still bugs out at times when you load a bike, and the storage and weapon racks that sit in the front, meaning you have to close the ramp before you can access those. Why not just put that in the cockpit or where the cooling rooms are? Do we really need 2 empty rooms taking up that much space? But before you check out one of these videos next, what do you think? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and thanks for watching.